Cruise vacations are marketed as the epitome of relaxation. You only need to unpack your bags one time, your food is covered, there's constant entertainment available, and the vessel handles all the navigation. Sounds ideal, doesn't it? However, the reality is that several typical errors can transform that fantasy into a catastrophe. I've witnessed travelers getting left behind by their ships, accumulating tens of thousands in unexpected fees, and even endangering themselves, simply due to basic oversights. Throughout this presentation, I'll cover 20 hazardous cruise vacation errors you need to steer clear of, enabling you to safeguard yourself, conserve funds, and genuinely relish the relaxing journey you invested in. Mistake 1. Getting to port the same day your cruise departs. This represents the most fundamental beginner error of all, and I've witnessed it destroy holidays before they've even begun. Travelers assume, the vessel departs at 4 p.m. My plane touches down at 11 a.m. Everything will work out. Incorrect. Airlines experience delays, climate creates havoc, bags get lost, and cruise vessels aren't comparable to lodging facilities. Showing up tardy isn't an option. Should you miss boarding, the vessel embarks without your presence. Your sole choice involves frantically arranging an overpriced last-second flight to rendezvous with the vessel at its initial destination, provided you can successfully reconnect. I witnessed a pair reach the boarding area with their plane arriving merely 2 hours prior to departure. Severe weather postponed their arrival by 3 hours, and once they touched down, the vessel had already departed. Their fantasy holiday commenced with a $700 airfare to the Caribbean islands, combined with 2 overnight hotel stays simply to reconnect. The secure approach is straightforward. Consistently reach your destination 1 day prior to your cruise departure. Reserve accommodations close to the harbor, enjoy an evening meal, rest well, and embark without stress the following morning. It requires slightly more expense, but it costs significantly less than missing your vessel completely. Mistake 2. Not keeping essential items in your carry-on. This is a subtle problem that many first-time cruisers overlook. After you give your luggage to the baggage handler during boarding, you won't retrieve it until much later in the day. Occasionally it arrives at 5 p.m., other times around 8. During this interval, you're limited to whatever you brought aboard personally. This is precisely where the error occurs. Travelers pack all their belongings in checked luggage, bathing suits, prescriptions, device chargers, even identification papers. Subsequently, they're irritated when they're unable to use the pool, take their medicine, or even worse, must queue at the help desk because they lack proper identification. The answer: consistently prepare a carry-on containing necessities, identification and paperwork, prescription drugs, technology and charging cables, precious items such as accessories or currency, swimming attire and lightweight garments for the deck. This way, while others wander aimlessly awaiting their bags, you're already poolside enjoying a beverage. Mistake 3. Disregarding the muster drill. Listen, nobody enjoys the muster drill. The temperature is uncomfortable, it's packed with people, and it seems to consume the beginning of your holiday. Certain travelers even attempt avoiding it, believing it's unnecessary. That represents a significant error. The muster drill serves as your emergency instruction session. It demonstrates precisely your designated location and required actions during emergencies. Vessels are generally secure. Crisis situations are uncommon. However, should something occur, you don't want to be someone who's clueless about their assembly point location. I recall one voyage where a traveler joked about avoiding the drill. 2 evenings afterward, the vessel experienced a false emergency. A minor blaze that was rapidly controlled. The warning signal activated and everybody needed to proceed to their assembly points. Can you guess who was in a state of panic because they were unaware of their destination? That identical traveler. Therefore, yes, the drill seems tedious, but it's mandatory. Approach it with seriousness and you'll appreciate yourself should the unforeseen actually occur. Mistake 4. Insufficient hand-washing. Cruise vessels are essentially floating municipalities. Thousands of travelers all consuming food at identical buffets, activating identical lift buttons, and contacting identical handrails, meaning microorganisms transmit rapidly. Norovirus breakouts are uncommon, but they occur and they proliferate extremely quickly. Here's the reality. The primary method to safeguard yourself isn't hand disinfectant. It's proper hand washing using soap and water. I cannot count the instances I've observed individuals proceed directly to the buffet without cleaning their hands. They grasp the utensils, contact the serving implements, then consume food using their fingers. It requires merely one ill individual doing this to devastate hundreds of holidays. The solution is straightforward. Establish hand-washing as your habit. Prior to eating, following lift use, after entertainment, after contacting communal surfaces. Keep disinfectant as an alternative, but soap and water represent your primary protection. It's not attractive, but it determines whether you relish your journey or remain confined to your quarters for 3 days. Mistake 5. Consuming tap water at ports. This is an error that appears innocent but can devastate your digestive system. Aboard the vessel, the water undergoes filtration and is safe. However, in numerous ports, particularly throughout the Caribbean, South America, and Asian regions, tap water isn't safe for consumption. I've observed travelers consume local water, clean their teeth at port accommodations, or even request a beverage with ice created from unfiltered water. By nighttime, they're suffering from digestive problems, missing evening meals, missing entertainment, and spending the night confined to their quarters. The secure approach is simple. Consistently choose bottled water at ports unless you're confident the nation's tap water is safe. Also monitor the ice. If you're uncertain it originates from filtered water, decline it. Your digestive system will be grateful. Mistake 6. Not purchasing travel insurance. This is something that doesn't appear critical until disaster strikes. Numerous travelers avoid travel insurance to reduce costs. They assume, I rarely become ill. What purpose would it serve? However, here's what's real. Healthcare at sea costs significantly. A basic consultation with a vessel's physician for digestive discomfort can exceed hundreds. Should you require something critical, such as helicopter evacuation, that invoice can reach 6-figure amounts. Can you guess who covers it without insurance? You do. I've observed individuals injure an ankle during excursions and encounter thousands in healthcare expenses. I've witnessed individuals evacuated from vessels and left with invoices comparable to purchasing a vehicle. Travel insurance isn't exclusively about healthcare. It can additionally cover missing bags, terminated flights, and missed connections. It serves as the protection that prevents an inconvenience from transforming into a catastrophe. Therefore, don't take risks here. Acquire it prior to your cruise and verify it includes medical evacuation coverage. It's not the enjoyable aspect of vacation planning, but it's the one element that can rescue you from monetary disaster should the worst materialize. Connecting thoughts. Those represent the initial 6 mistakes. Notice the pattern present. They're not spectacular errors. They're basic things that seem innocent momentarily: reaching late, organizing incorrectly, avoiding the drill, or disregarding hand-washing. However, collectively, they can devastate your cruise before it truly commences. Here's where it becomes more intriguing. The subsequent group of errors are less about advanced planning and more about proper conduct throughout your cruise aboard and at ports. They're the ones capable of costing you funds, security, and peace of mind if you're not vigilant. Let's explore those subsequently. Mistake 7. Abandoning valuables unmonitored. Cruise vessels seem secure. Ultimately, you're in a regulated setting with monitoring systems and personnel and thousands of pleasant travelers. However, here's what's true. Stealing continues to occur. The primary error travelers commit is abandoning valuables unmonitored. I've observed individuals abandon their devices and billfolds, even identification papers, resting on lounge chairs while they enter the pool. Others conceal accessories or currency in an unsecured suitcase, presuming it's acceptable. However, the reality is that opportunistic stealing exists universally, including at sea. Your cabin security box is your ally. Utilize it for identification papers, accessories, and surplus currency. When you're poolside, bring exclusively what's necessary. At ports, maintain valuables on your person in a protected bag. It seems liberating to unwind and not consider theft. However, that single instance of carelessness can devastate your journey. Replacing a missing device or identification abroad is stressful, costly, and time-intensive. Better to avoid the problem initially. Mistake 8. Bringing excessive heavy clothing. This is an error that appears innocent but complicates your journey. Excessive packing. New cruisers enjoy preparing for all conceivable scenarios. Several coats, numerous footwear, half their wardrobe just for contingencies. However, cruise quarters aren't constructed for that. Storage space is limited, and each additional pair of boots or bulky jacket makes your quarters feel more cramped. I've observed families with 3 individuals in one quarters barely capable of movement because the space is overwhelmed with garments. They invest half the cruise irritated rather than relaxed. The intelligent approach is packing minimally and packing wisely. Maintain adaptable clothing that you can combine differently. Remember that cruise cleaning services are available if genuinely necessary. Consider lightweight layers rather than bulky pieces. Here's the revelation. Most of those contingency clothing never even get utilized. Therefore, don't allow your quarters to transform into a wardrobe you cannot escape from. Mistake 9. Neglecting sunscreen application, including overcast days. This error catches travelers constantly. You awaken to a cloudy atmosphere, sense the ocean wind, and assume, "I don't require sunscreen presently." By nighttime, you're crimson as a crustacean. The sun at sea is harsh. Cloud coverage doesn't prevent UV radiation, and the ocean surface reflects sunlight, increasing the exposure. Include a refreshing wind and you don't sense yourself burning. I've observed individuals devastate complete cruises by underestimating this. Sunburn so severe they cannot wear garments comfortably, cannot rest, and certainly cannot enjoy the pool or activities. The solution is straightforward. Apply environmentally safe sunscreen daily, including during cloudy conditions. Reapply following swimming. Don't overlook areas like ears, feet, and your neck's rear. It seems unnecessary momentarily, but one severe burn can transform a 7-day cruise into 7 days of suffering. Safeguard yourself from the initial day. Mistake 10. Losing track of time at ports. One of the most anxiety-inducing cruise situations is observing travelers racing down the dock as the vessel readies for departure. Sometimes they succeed and sometimes they fail. Here's the situation. Cruise vessels don't delay for anyone unless you're participating in an authorized cruise line activity. If you're exploring independently and forget the time, the vessel will depart without your presence. Catching up. That's your responsibility with flights and accommodations out of pocket. I've witnessed it occur multiple times. Travelers returning an hour tardy, gesturing desperately at the vessel that's already departing. It's devastating, but it's additionally avoidable. Consistently adjust your timepiece to vessel time, not local port time. There's frequently a discrepancy, and it confuses individuals. Create a safety margin. Target returning at minimum 1 hour prior to final boarding. If you're concerned about scheduling, maintain cruise-arranged activities. They ensure the vessel will delay. The independence of exploring independently is wonderful, but the risk of missing the vessel is genuine. Don't risk your holiday on poor scheduling. Mistake 11. Reserving all activities through the ship. Now, let's reverse the perspective. While reserving directly through the cruise company ensures the vessel will delay, it additionally ensures you'll spend a premium. Cruise companies extract a substantial portion from local providers. That $120 snorkeling activity, the instructor might exclusively charge $60 if you reserve directly, and the vessel activities are frequently overcrowded with 40 to 50 individuals, while independent tours might contain merely 10. The error is presuming that the cruise company's activities are your exclusive choice. They're secure, certainly, but they're not consistently the optimal value. The wiser approach is conducting research beforehand. Platforms like TripAdvisor, Viator, or cruise discussion boards identify trustworthy independent providers. Many additionally customize tours for smaller parties and continue to return you punctually. The risk isn't reserving activities, it's reserving without consideration through the vessel and overspending without recognizing you possessed alternatives. Equilibrium is essential. Utilize the cruise company for distant activities with restricted scheduling and proceed independently when you desire more affordable, more individualized experiences. Mistake 12. Not bringing seasickness prevention. Even if you've never experienced seasickness previously, this one's valuable to consider. Because it requires merely one turbulent night at sea to remind you that you're on a moving vessel. I've observed robust, experienced travelers completely incapacitated by seasickness on windy routes. They forfeit complete days confined to their quarters, missing entertainment and dining and activities. The worst aspect, once it manifests, it's challenging to halt without medication. The error is failing to prepare. Individuals assume I'll manage. Subsequently, they don't. Consistently bring seasickness prevention. Dramamine, Bonini, ginger supplements, or Sea-Bands. If you're susceptible to motion sickness, consult your physician about stronger prescriptions. Here's an additional suggestion. Quarters midship on lower levels tend to experience less movement. Therefore, if you're concerned, reserve one of those. The risk of seasickness isn't exclusively the discomfort. It's forfeiting complete portions of your holiday unnecessarily. A small container of tablets is inexpensive protection. Mistake 13. Excessive food and beverage consumption. Cruises are renowned for buffets, unlimited beverages, and unlimited dining. While indulging represents part of the enjoyment, excessive indulgence is one of the most subtle errors that can devastate a cruise. I've observed travelers become excessive on the initial day, 4 servings of buffet food, unlimited beverages poolside, and invest the subsequent 2 days in their quarters feeling terrible. Alcohol affects more intensely in the sun, and excessive consumption of rich food can devastate your digestive system rapidly. The risk isn't the food or the beverages, it's the excessiveness. Hydrate between beverages. Control yourself at the buffet. Sample a small portion of everything, but don't approach every meal like a challenge. Consider it this way. It's an endurance event, not a race. You possess 7 days to enjoy everything. Don't devastate it by overwhelming your body excessively on the initial day. Mistake 14. Disregarding crew directions. Cruise vessels are floating municipalities and the personnel maintain everything operating efficiently. However, here's a hazardous error. Disregarding crew directions. Perhaps it's the muster drill regulations. Perhaps it's a reminder against sitting on the barrier. Perhaps it's directions during tendering to shore. Certain travelers dismiss it assuming, I've traveled previously. I'm knowledgeable. However, the personnel aren't merely being particular. They've received training for security. I once witnessed a traveler dispute about wearing a flotation device on a tender vessel. The personnel insisted and ultimately the traveler complied. However, minutes afterward, turbulent waves struck. The vest wasn't merely beneficial, it was critical. The lesson here is if a personnel member provides you a regulation or instruction, it's not discretionary. Honor it. It maintains you and everybody else aboard secure. Mistake 15. Not securing your balcony access. Balcony quarters are amazing. You receive fresh atmosphere, ocean panoramas, and a private paradise section. However, abandoning that access unlocked is a hazardous error. Strong winds at sea can propel balcony furniture around. Storms can strike unexpectedly. Even children misbehaving can venture outside without supervision. Let's not overlook that balcony access can close violently if abandoned open during turbulent seas, which can harm the access or injure someone. At nighttime or whenever you depart the quarters, secure it. It appears obvious, but numerous individuals abandon it partially open for fresh atmosphere only to regret it afterward. You'll rest better understanding you've secured it, and you'll prevent unexpected incidents. Mistake 16. Traveling without appropriate documentation. Here's a catastrophic scenario. You appear at the harbor, enthusiastic to embark, only to be rejected at the boarding area because your documentation isn't proper. This occurs more frequently than you'd believe. Travelers presume a driver's license suffices, or they bring an expired identification, or they overlook that certain itineraries demand visas. Cruise companies won't create exceptions. You simply don't embark. The solution is direct but severe. Verify documentation requirements months prior to your journey. Bring valid identifications, visas if demanded, and maintain photocopies for potential loss. Certain cruisers additionally maintain digital copies stored securely online. Traveling internationally without appropriate documentation isn't merely inconvenient, it can terminate your holiday before it truly commences. Mistake 17. Not planning for onboard costs. Cruises promote themselves as all-encompassing, but once you're aboard, the additional sales commence. Beverages, specialty dining, internet access, spa services, casino chips, art sales, shore activities, photographs. Charge your cruise card without consideration, and the invoice at the conclusion can be startling. I've observed travelers nearly collapse at disembarkation when they recognize their $1,500 holiday has expanded to $3,000 due to spontaneous spending. The error is treating your cruise card like game currency. It seems painless momentarily, but it's extremely real when you finalize the account. The solution: establish a plan before you embark. Monitor costs daily. Numerous cruise applications display your current balance. Remember, you don't require extras to enjoy your journey. Occasionally, the optimal moments are complimentary: sunsets on the deck, entertainment in the auditorium, live music at the piano lounge. Mistake 18: allowing children to wander without guidelines. Cruises are family-oriented and vessels seem secure. However, another error parents commit is allowing children to wander freely without explicit guidelines. Vessels are large, populated settings. Children can become lost, venture into adult-exclusive areas, or injure themselves by climbing barriers. While personnel remain vigilant, they're not childcare providers. The intelligent approach is establishing limits. Determine secure areas where your children can proceed. Create check-in schedules. Verify they understand how to reach their quarters or assembly point. I've observed families panic because their children failed to appear for dinner only to learn they remained in the arcade hours afterward. That's preventable stress. A modest amount of structure provides significant benefits. Mistake 19: avoiding basic security measures. Most individuals don't consider crime when they consider cruising, but ports, particularly populated markets, are locations for pickpockets. I've observed travelers forfeit billfolds and identification papers and devices because they maintain them in rear pockets or unsecured bags. That error can abandon you stranded internationally, frantically attempting to obtain replacements. The peculiar aspect: the solution is extremely simple. Bring a compact lock for your backpack. Utilize an RFID blocking billfold to safeguard your cards. Maintain currency and documentation divided between bags rather than all in a single location. You don't require paranoia, merely intelligence. Several basic measures can avoid a minor theft from transforming into a vacation-terminating emergency. Mistake 20: assuming it won't affect me. This represents the most hazardous perspective of all. I've observed travelers dismiss security regulations, avoid travel insurance, abandon documentation behind, or consume excessively because they presume I'll manage. Most occasions, yes, they do. However, the single occasion they don't, that's when everything unravels. The reality is, cruising is remarkably secure and pleasant provided you honor the risks. Assuming you're invulnerable prevents you from recognizing the exact measures that safeguard you. The most intelligent cruisers aren't paranoid. They're prepared. That's why their holidays proceed smoothly while others encounter disaster. Now, I desire to receive your input. What represents the most significant cruise error you've observed someone commit? Or perhaps one you've committed yourself that you'll never duplicate? Share it in the feedback section. Your experience might rescue another cruiser from discovering the challenging way. Before you depart, examine the subsequent presentation on screen for additional insider cruise techniques. Additionally, participate in our complimentary online community through the connection in the description. That's where I distribute additional suggestions, materials, respond to your inquiries directly, and connect you with other travelers organizing more intelligent voyages. Your voyage is imminent.